Today, I'm going to explain an Italian fantasy and superhero movie called The Invisible Boy. At the beginning of the movie, we see a boy named Michele Silenzi riding his bike to school in Trieste, Italy. He carries a €50 bill, which he plans to use to buy a costume for a party. At school, he sits behind his lifelong crush, Stella. His class is interrupted by a police officer named Giovanna, who is also Michelle's mother. She is there to ask about the disappearance of a student. Giovanna asks the class to inform the police if they hear anything about the missing student. After she leaves, Michelle's nose starts bleeding, so he runs to the bathroom. His bullies, who have been bothering him for a long time, threaten him and force him to hand over all his money. He returns home, discouraged by the incident. He takes out some coins he had saved and decides to buy something with the money. Then Michelle visits a shop that looks run down and asks for a superhero costume. The shop owner gives him a tight-fitting suit and a very cheap-looking cape. The owner claims it is the suit of a Chinese superhero. Michelle doesn't seem to like the costume, but he buys it anyway. When Giovanna returns home from work, she sees Michelle wearing his costume, refusing to go to the party because he thinks he looks ridiculous. She reassures him that he looks fine and sends him to the party. There, Michelle has fun and even talks to his crush, Stella. But then, his bullies show a video of Stella walking down the street. They claim the video was found on Michelle's phone and that he has been spying on Stella. A humiliated Michelle runs to the bathroom and locks himself in. All his classmates pound on the door from outside, asking him to open it. Michelle is frustrated and wishes he could be invisible just before the lights go out. In the next scene, we see him jumping out of the bathroom window and heading home. The next morning, Michelle wakes up to his dog barking at him. He doesn't pay much attention to it and goes to the bathroom to brush his teeth. When he looks in the mirror, Michelle is completely shocked to see only his bathrobe holding the toothbrush. His body is invisible in the mirror. Michelle runs out and takes off his robe. Just then, his mother walks in and completely ignores him, proving that only Michelle can see himself. When she starts looking around, Michelle quickly writes on a piece of paper that he went to school early and places it on the bed. Giovanna reads it and dismisses the matter. After leaving the room, she calls Michelle on his phone. An invisible Michelle answers and tells her he's fine. Confused about what to do next, he dresses in long-sleeved clothing. After covering every part of his body, he goes to school and watches Stella from a distance. Michelle then notices his bully and plans to teach him a lesson for bothering him so much. He takes off his clothes and enters the school naked and invisible. During class, he takes the bully's paintball gun and uses it against the teacher, causing the teacher to suspend the bully. Then, Michelle heads to the girls' locker room and watches them undress. Suddenly, a towel falls on him, making his silhouette visible to everyone. At that moment, his powers start to fade, and he becomes visible again. The girls scream upon seeing a naked Michelle under the towel. The next day, Michelle is in class, where a psychologist named Basile is giving a talk about adolescent mental health. Two of Michelle's classmates have run away from home in the past month, so he considers it necessary to understand how teenagers think. While Michelle listens to the talk, his hands begin to glow, and suddenly they disappear. Fortunately, the class ends, and he runs outside before anyone can see him vanish. He rushes home, covering every part of his body, and sees his little sister, Candela, in her room. Michelle asks her to go downstairs while he turns toward the wall. A suspicious Candela opens and closes the door to make him believe she has left. Michelle doesn't turn around to check and starts taking off his clothes. When he turns around, Candela screams in terror upon seeing that her brother is invisible. Michelle calms her down and tells her that his costume has given him superpowers. Meanwhile, at the police station, psychiatrist Basile is working with Giovanna to investigate the disappearance of the children. Giovanna insists that the children might have been kidnapped, but Basile argues that they are just being rebellious, which is normal for their age. When Giovanna returns home, Michelle is still invisible. Giovanna talks to someone on the phone, revealing that Michelle is adopted. A shocked and hurt Michelle leaves the house and goes to a nearby swing. While he is swinging, Stella arrives and thinks that Michelle is a ghost. She doesn't seem scared. Instead, she asks him to be her friend. He draws a smiling face in the sand to communicate with her. The two decide to meet again. After Stella leaves, Michelle sees a man nearby, looking at him, even though he is invisible. The man walks away using a cane, revealing that he is blind. At night, Michelle visits Stella's house. Stella is delighted to have made an invisible friend. The two kiss, but at that moment, Michelle's powers start to fade. He runs away before Stella can see his face. Later, Stella is alone in her gym class when a needle pierces her back. This makes her fall unconscious. Meanwhile, Michelle has decided to tell Stella that he is the invisible boy. He heads to her gym class with his dog. When he arrives at the building, he sees a masked man carrying Stella. Michelle attacks the man, and his dog bites his hand. However, the man manages to escape with the girl. Later, the police arrive at the scene. They discover that the missing children hadn't run away but had been kidnapped. Stella wakes up in a strange facility with her head connected to several cables. Psychiatrist Basile is there, interrogating her. It turns out that he is the one who has been kidnapping the children. They run some tests on the girl and then send her to a cell. Two of her friends, who had disappeared before her, are also there. The next day, Michelle is alone on a nearby beach when suddenly, the blind man from the previous day appears in front of him. The man answers all of Michelle's questions before he can even ask them. It's as if he can read minds. When Michelle asks him who he is, the man reveals that his name is Andres and that he is Michelle's father. The boy doesn't believe Andres and accuses him of lying. Then Andres begins to tell his story. He used to be a normal man from a small town in Russia until a devastating nuclear explosion hit the town. The radiation killed many people and caused a permanent change in others. It mutated their DNA, giving them special human abilities like flying, telepathy, invisibility, etc. These people were called the Specials and were taken to a military camp called the Division to be used as weapons. The Division pushed them beyond their limits. The more power the Specials used, the weaker they became. Another side effect was that they were all infertile, except for Andres and Michelle's mother. The two had Michelle, who was the first special child, but as soon as he was born, he was taken away. So the parents decided to flee with Michelle, and they succeeded. But the people from the Division weren't going to give up. They hunted the couple down to recover the child. Michelle's father had the power to read minds, while his mother had the power of invisibility. Andres managed to escape with Michelle, but his wife was killed by the Division. Andres knew that Michelle wasn't safe with him, so he left him at Giovanna's door after reading her mind and confirming that she was a good person. Now, the people from the Division have discovered that the special child is living in the town, so they are kidnapping children and running tests on them to see if they are specials. After hearing about his true origin, Michelle is in shock. He can hardly believe it, but Andres says there's no time to talk because a fisherman nearby finds Andres suspicious and has called the police. Andres gives Michelle a suit that makes him invisible, along with his body. Then he erases the fisherman's memory and leaves. Shortly after, the police arrive, along with Basile. Giovanna reveals that Michelle is adopted, which makes Basile believe that he could be the special child. He offers to take Michelle home. When they arrive at the house, Michelle notices the wound on Basile's hand, the same spot where his dog had bitten Stella's kidnapper. He looks at the man suspiciously and tries to escape, but it turns out that Basile has locked all the doors and is planning to kidnap him. Michelle runs into a room and takes off his clothes, becoming invisible. He manages to escape while Basile chases after him. When they are in the streets, Michelle sees his bully, Ivan, on his bike. He sits behind him and asks him to ride away quickly. A nervous Ivan agrees. When they reach a safe place, Michelle reveals himself to Ivan and tells him about the kidnapping of their classmate. Meanwhile, Stella and her friends see a vent in the ceiling. They climb on top of each other, and Stella manages to get out. While hiding from the guards, she climbs a tower and reaches a searchlight. Believing that her invisible friend is looking for her, she draws a smiling face on the light and shines it toward the sky. Michelle sees the smiling face and realizes that Stella is trying to signal them. He and Ivan follow the light, but as soon as they arrive, Stella is caught by the guards. Ivan causes an electrical malfunction using his paintball gun, while Michelle, invisible, sneaks in. He sees Basile and his men watching over Giovanna and Andres, who have teamed up to look for Michelle. Then he moves forward and knocks out a guard. Using his gun, he threatens another guard to open the cell where Stella and the others are trapped. After getting them out and trapping the guards inside, Michel reveals himself to his friends, who are completely shocked. The kids want to run away, but Stella insists on saving an old man she saw locked in another room. She and Michel go to rescue the man, but Stella leads him toward the villains and points a gun at Michel. Suddenly, she falls unconscious, and the old man behind her starts talking. It turns out he has the power of mind control. He has been controlling Basile and Stella to bring Michel there. Then, the man lowers a submarine and puts Michel and Stella inside it. The men take them out to sea. At that moment, Andres and Giovanna arrive at the location and meet Yvonne. The building has been rigged to explode in seconds. They quickly rescue the two kidnapped kids and Basile from inside. Andres reads Basile's mind and realizes that someone was controlling them. They manage to get away quickly from the building, which explodes into pieces right after. Back on the submarine, Michel discovers his telekinesis power and starts wrecking the place. Using his powers, he manages to kill the man and save himself, along with Stella. Finally, they return to shore, where many people are waiting for them. Michel turns invisible in front of them, showing his power. Andres tells Michel that they will have to erase everyone's memories because the division will come looking for them again. Michel agrees and kisses Stella one last time. Andres tells him he will return and leaves after erasing everyone's memories. Everyone goes back to their normal lives. The scene cuts to somewhere in Russia. Michel's mother, who was thought to be dead, was actually only wounded in the fight. She defeated the division at the time and is now ruling it. In fact, she was the one who sent those people to bring Michel back to her. The woman is now against all normal people who see them as monsters. Finally, a guard informs her that although they lost Michel, they have found his twin sister, Natasha. A clip from the past shows that Andres fled with 2 children that day. The movie ends as the guard tells Michel's mother that Natasha is somewhere in Morocco, suggesting a possible sequel. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel. Thanks for watching.